Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Professor Clayton Christensen, who wears many hats as an author, an entrepreneur, a missionary, a husband, a father. Clay, it's a pleasure to have you.
I'm honored to be with you, Doug. Thanks.
So you recently came out with a book called How Will You Measure Your Life, which is a very different book from previous books you've written. Could you tell us a little bit about what made you do that?
Well, it has its origins with my students at the Harvard Business School. And just the structure of the book entails, for every class, I ask the students to read a paper that describes a theory about management. A theory is a statement of what causes what and why. And then after they've read the theory, they also have to read a case study about a company that is in a problem that can be understood if you look at that company through the lens of this theory. And then we discuss what can we see through the lens of this theory. And then the next day we have another case and another theory about another dimension of a manager's job. And you try to then understand that day's case through the lens of that theory. And then when you're done, you put on yesterday's theory to see if you can understand this case even more at deeper depth. And so we do that through the course of the semester. And then at the end of the class, at the suggestion of my students, we dedicate the last session of the class to examine ourselves. And is it possible that these theories about management actually can help us understand, if I keep doing what I'm doing 20 years down the road, what is my life going to look like? Mm-hmm. And if I want to be a particular person 20 years down the road, what do I need to change about now in order to become the kind of person I want to be? And if I keep doing what I'm doing, is it possible that my life is going to turn out what I would never hope to happen to me? And so then we just discuss, if I examine my future through the lens of these theories, what does it say about where I'm going and what I need to change? And it truly is an extraordinary experience. It turns out that these theories of management are not just theories about management, that they're fundamental explanations of what causes what and why. And about 5 years ago, with a particular set of students that year, we just had an extraordinary course end. And several of the students asked me, would I just, they had recorded the session, and they asked, would you give this talk, a summary of this class session at graduation for the Harvard Business School students?
Wow.
And so I did it. And I guess that was really quite useful to a lot of people. And so they then asked if I would write a case or write a book about this experience and what the insights were that emerged from that discussion.
So let me ask you about one of those insights, because in the book is broken up into a few parts for those of you who have not yet read it. You talk about finding happiness as a big part of your goal, and certainly what you just mentioned now is 20 years down the road. And one of the bits of wisdom my father always said, he said, make sure you spend time with your kids, because no one on his deathbed ever said, I wish I had spent more time at the office.
Yeah.
I thought that was very good wisdom. But, in my day job is that I'm a financial advisor. And sometimes I find that, I talk to clients and we're talking a lot about money, and I always try to refer to them back to the original goals, which is, it's not about how much money you have, it's about how much life you have. But I don't get the feeling, I've explained this many times, but for a lot of people, they're still finding it difficult to make that connection. How do you normally just describe or help people along that path?
Well, it turns out that it's not just people who have that problem. Companies have that problem.
Okay.
General Motors has just been disrupted, in my language, by Toyota, and nobody managers of General Motors, nobody ever got down with the management team or the board and developed a plan for driving General Motors into bankruptcy. But they did what the right thing seemed to be at the time, and yet doing the right thing added up to a future that none of them intended to have happen to them. And the reason why that happens is if you are driven to achieve, whether you're running a company or in your personal lives, you have an extra ounce of energy or 30 minutes of time, instinctively you'll allocate that to whatever activity yields the most immediate and tangible evidence of achievement. And our careers provide immediate and tangible evidence of achievement. Mm-hmm. We close a deal, we ship a product, we finish a design, we make a great presentation, we get promoted, we get paid. And yet, investing our time and energy on our children or our spouse, the relationship with our spouses, they don't pay off on the short term. In fact, investments in our children, time spent with them, don't pay off at all on a day-to-day basis. The children misbehave every day. And it's really not until 20 years down the road that you can say, put your hands on your hips and say, man, we created a great daughter. Uh-huh. On a day-to-day basis, you don't have that feedback. And that's why, even though none of us intend to get divorced and have children who are alienated from us or who hate their guts, a shocking number of people actually have implemented a strategy that they didn't intend to pursue.
Mm-hmm. And that's maybe because they couldn't see what was going to be the ultimate results.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So you're suggesting goal setting or thinking far, far down the line. Let me just reintroduce you for those of you who are joining us now. We're talking with Professor Clayton Christensen, who has his most recent book is called How Will You Measure Your Life? He's written a number of books, and hopefully we'll have time to go through some of them. But he's been talking to us about how we're making a parallel between having a career decision and finding happiness in your career perhaps can be parallel to happiness in your personal life as well. Is that a good summary?
Yep, that's a great summary.
So Clay, you made a comparison between how people can find happiness in their career and then also trying to apply that to, let's say, personal financial decisions, maybe even financial decisions within a household. Do you see any particular models or particular steps that a family could take in order to ensure that they can see the bigger picture?
Yeah, you need to set rules because if you make these decisions on a case-by-case basis, it will always seem to you in the moment as if it's okay if I don't invest in what matters today because I can start that tomorrow. Just like a company can say, we don't need to invest for the longer term today because we can start that tomorrow. And you really have to set bounds. So I, for example, in my own life, when I finished with an MBA from Harvard, I made a decision with my wife that I just wouldn't work on the Sabbath because I'm a religious guy, as you are, and if I want to live a life close to God, I need to invest my time that's consistent with that priority. Mm-hmm. And then the other day in the weekend, we decided I wouldn't work on that day either because I wanted to spend that time with my family. And it was really hard because my colleagues and my employers wanted me to work on weekends. Everybody works on weekends.
Right.
But I had to make that decision once and stay with it. Otherwise, I'll make decisions that will lead me in a path that I don't want to go down.
That's interesting. I've seen similar things that people talk about charity. One of the points I've noted, the Bible talks about giving 10%, and some people give a lot more. And I've often noticed that some of my most successful clients are people who don't stop at 10%, but they go to 15 or 20% or more of their income to charity. And then they always seem to do better. In fact, they tell me when things aren't going well, I up my charity. And I don't relate it to being superstitious. In other words, I don't think it's that view. I think it gives them a better sense of what money is for and what it's all about. And then they're able to make better decisions, meaning that 20% was never theirs in the first place. So I respect what you've done there.
Doug, I think you are exactly right. If I could use my language for what you just said, people wonder all of the time, Clay, if you're not working every weekend, how can you be successful in your profession? And my answer is, if I do what God wants me to do, He will magnify me so that I can be more capable of doing what I need to do professionally. And if I didn't prioritize what God wants me to prioritize, then it would just plain old ordinary Clay Christensen competing against thousands of Clay Christensen type people. And I really do think that what you said is exactly right, that if we do what God wants us to do, God will magnify us.
Well, that is a pretty radical opinion for someone in Boston, no? I mean, here in Israel, it's easy to say that.
Yeah, but I think it's true. It certainly has been my experience, Doug.
Wow, that's great. Listen, we're nearing the end. Tell us, what are you working on now?
I'm working on a new book called The Capitalist Dilemma that tries to explain why in North America, Western Europe, and Japan, the financial parts of our economy seem to be doing quite well, but we're not creating new jobs. And why can the real economy not rebound from the most recent recession in a robust way?
Okay, that sounds like a very, very good question, which everyone's trying to answer. I'd say it's the $64,000 question, but it's the $64,000 a year question for someone's salary who doesn't get it because he's unemployed. Listen, Clay, we're just about out of time. In the last few seconds, tell people how can they, follow your work and learn more about some of the many books that you've written.
Well, thanks. I am a professor at the Harvard Business School. It's my full-time job. And I have a website that just summarizes the elements of my research. And so they can find us at ClaytonChristensen.com. That's the Danish version, CHRISTENSEN, ClaytonChristensen.com. And they can also navigate towards this through the Harvard Business School website itself.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope we'll have you back again soon on the Goldstein on Gelt show.
Thanks so much, Doug. Good luck to you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.